The lake had always been quiet. People who lived near the park believed the lake was older than the trees around it. No one remembered a time when it behaved strangely. It did not flood. It did not dry up. It stayed calm through storms, heat, and cold. That calm was why the park was popular with visitors who wanted peace. Mark had worked as a park ranger there for 12 years. He was not the kind of man who imagined things. He trusted patterns, rules, and routine. Nature usually followed those rules if you paid attention long enough. Every morning, Mark started his shift before sunrise. He walked the same path along the lake, checked warning signs, and looked for anything out of place. Fallen branches, broken fences, or signs of people going where they should not. Most days were quiet, and Mark liked it that way. That morning felt normal at first. The air was cool, and a thin layer of mist rested on the lake. Birds moved softly among the trees. The water near the shore was smooth like glass. Mark walked slowly, writing small notes in his pocket notebook. Then he noticed something strange. The center of the lake did not look still. At first, Mark thought it was his eyes playing tricks on him. He stopped walking and stared. The water near the middle was turning in a slow circle. It was not fast and it was not loud, but it was steady. The rest of the lake remained calm. Mark felt a chill move through him. He lifted his binoculars and focused on the center. The movement was clear now. A whirlpool had formed, small but deep. The water bent inward, pulling itself down as if something below was calling it. Mark lowered the binoculars and looked around. The trees were still. There was no wind. No boats were on the lake. No animals disturbed the water. This should not be happening, he thought. The lake had no strong currents. No rivers flowed into it. No machines worked nearby. Nothing could explain the movement. Mark wrote a careful note in his log. Time. Location. Water movement at center of lake. Then he walked quickly back toward the ranger station. Inside, Ben was sitting at the desk, looking through reports. "You look worried," Ben said. "There is something wrong with the lake," Mark replied. Ben raised his head. "What kind of wrong?" "There is a whirlpool in the center," Mark said. "It started this morning and has not stopped." Ben stood up at once. "That lake does not move like that." "I know," Mark said. They walked back to the shore together. The whirlpool was still there. It had not grown wider, but it looked deeper. The water around it bent inward at a sharper angle. Ben crouched near the edge. Could it be a sinkhole forming under the lake? Mark shook his head. "The ground here is solid rock. Sinkholes do not form this clean." They radioed the main office and reported what they saw. The response was slow and careful. They were told to observe and report any changes. So Mark stayed. He watched the lake for hours. The whirlpool never stopped. It did not speed up or slow down. It turned with quiet patience, like it had all the time in the world. By midday, visitors arrived at the park. Mark placed warning signs along the shore and told people to keep their distance. Most listened. A few asked questions. Mark gave calm answers without sharing his fear. As the sun moved lower, something changed. The water around the whirlpool grew darker. Not from shadow, but from depth. It looked like the lake had opened into something deeper than before. The center now seemed like a hole rather than a surface. Mark felt his heartbeat grow heavier. He leaned closer, careful not to step too near the edge. The water reflected less light. It swallowed it. Ben stood beside him. "I do not like this," he said quietly. "Neither do I," Mark replied. Late in the afternoon, a soft vibration moved through the ground. It was so light that Mark almost missed it. The birds in the trees suddenly went silent. Mark straightened. "Did you feel that?" Ben nodded. The water in the whirlpool shifted. For the first time all day, the pattern changed. The circle widened slightly, and the pull grew stronger. Small pieces of driftwood nearby began sliding toward the center. Mark stepped back. Whatever was beneath the lake was not just empty space. It was active. As the sun dipped below the trees, the whirlpool deepened further. The lake looked less like water and more like an opening. Mark felt a strong sense of warning, the kind that comes before a storm. He knew then that this was not a natural event that would simply pass. Something beneath the lake had been hidden for a very long time, and now it was waking up. The night passed with little sleep for Mark. Even after leaving the lake, the image of the dark whirlpool stayed in his mind. He had seen storms, fallen trees, and injured animals during his years as a ranger, but this felt different. This felt hidden, as if the lake had been keeping a secret and had finally grown tired of silence. At sunrise, Mark returned to the shore. The whirlpool was still there. It had grown wider during the night. The water now pulled in stronger lines, drawing floating leaves and small branches toward the center. The air above the lake felt colder than usual, even though the sun was already rising. Ben joined him a few minutes later. "I hoped it would be gone," Ben said quietly. "So did I," Mark replied. They stood in silence, watching the lake move in a way it never had before. The water no longer looked calm anywhere near the center. The smooth surface had been replaced by slow bending lines, all pointing inward. Mark radioed the main office again. This time, the response was different. A small research team plotting underwater readings was sent from the city. They would arrive before noon. Until then, Mark and Ben were told to keep people away. Visitors began to gather at a distance, curious about the signs and barriers. Some took pictures. Others whispered. Mark ignored them and kept his eyes on the lake. Near mid-morning, a low sound rose from the water. It was not loud. It was not sharp. It felt more like pressure than sound, a deep hum that vibrated through the ground and into Mark's boots. Ben noticed it too. "The ground is moving again." "Yes," Mark said. "And stronger than yesterday." The whirlpool suddenly shifted. For a brief moment, the water at the center pulled downward faster than before. The surface stretched thin, and something dark appeared beneath it. Mark's breath caught. It was not rock. It was smooth and curved, like the top of a wide structure buried deep under the lake. The water rushed over it, hiding it again, but not before Mark clearly saw its shape. Ben stared wide-eyed. "Did you see that?" "I did," Mark said. His voice sounded distant even to himself. They backed away from the edge. Whatever lay beneath the lake was not natural ground. It had form. It had design. The research team arrived before noon. 3 people stepped out of a white vehicle. One carried a case of instruments. Another held a tablet. The third, a woman named Laura, spoke calmly as she listened to Mark's report. "A structure under the lake," she repeated. "That would explain the movement." "But not the age," Mark said. "This lake has been here longer than the park." Laura nodded. "That is what concerns me." They set up equipment along the shore and lowered sensors into the water at a safe distance from the whirlpool. The readings appeared quickly. Depth measurements showed something impossible. The lake was far deeper at the center than it should have been. Beneath the normal lakebed, there was an open space, wide and smooth, like a chamber carved with purpose. Laura looked at the data twice. "This should not exist. Can it collapse?" Ben asked. "It is already moving," Laura said. "Which means it has been stable for a long time, and something has changed." As if responding to her words, the water pulled harder. The whirlpool widened again. The lake's surface dipped lower at the center, revealing more of the dark shape beneath. Mark felt the same warning feeling return, stronger than before. Suddenly, the humming sound stopped. The lake went still. For a few seconds, everything froze. Birds remained silent. Wind did not move the trees. Even the water near the shore did not ripple. Then the lake dropped. Not slowly. Not gently. The water level at the center fell several feet in a single breath, as if a plug had been removed from the world. Water rushed downward, exposing a massive opening beneath the lake. People gasped. What stood revealed was a wide circular structure made of dark stone or metal, its surface smooth and untouched by time. A round opening sat at its center, swallowing the water as it poured in. The structure looked ancient, but not broken. It had waited, sealed and hidden, until now. Mark stood frozen. Laura whispered, "This was built." The water continued to drain, but the structure remained firm. Lights on the research equipment flickered as readings spiked beyond expected limits. Ben took a step back. Who would build something like this under a lake? Mark shook his head slowly. Not who. When. As the flow slowed, the opening beneath the lake became fully visible. Symbols faintly etched along its rim caught the light, worn but still clear. They did not match any language Mark recognized. Laura stared at them in silence. "This changes everything," she said finally. Before anyone could respond, a deep vibration returned, stronger than before. The structure beneath the lake trembled slightly, as if responding to the sudden exposure. Mark felt it then. The sense that this place was never meant to be found, and that opening it had consequences no one was prepared for. The lake no longer looked like a lake. Where calm water once reflected the sky, a wide opening now sat exposed at the center. The remaining water clung to the edges, flowing slowly downward as if pulled by unseen hands. The structure beneath stood firm, unmoving, like it had been waiting for this moment. Mark could not take his eyes off it. The dark surface of the structure looked smooth and aged at the same time. It did not show cracks or damage. It looked protected, shaped with care. The faint symbols along its edge shimmered slightly as water passed over them. Laura broke the silence. "Everyone stay back. This area is not stable." Mark nodded and moved closer to the barrier line. Visitors had been pushed far away now. The park was quiet, closed by emergency order. Only the rangers and research team remained. Ben stood beside Mark. "This does not feel real," he said. Mark agreed, but he kept his voice steady. "It is real. And it has been hidden longer than anything we know." The vibrations under their feet continued in slow waves. They were not violent, but they were strong enough to be felt through the ground. Laura and her team studied the data. Readings showed the structure extended far beyond the visible opening. Whatever lay beneath the lake was not small. It was massive, buried deep beneath layers of stone. "This is not a cave," Laura said. "It is a chamber." Mark watched as a thin beam of light from one of the devices reached into the opening. The beam did not stop. It disappeared into darkness, swallowed without reflection. "How deep does it go?" Ben asked. Laura shook her head. "Deeper than our instruments can measure from here." The humming sound returned, softer now but constant. It felt steady, like breathing. The sound did not come from the water. It came from below. Mark felt his chest tighten. "It is active." "Yes," Laura said quietly. "And it has been active before." A decision was made quickly. A small camera drone would be lowered to get a visual view. The device was attached to a cable and carefully positioned above the opening. Everyone held their breath as the drone descended. The camera feed appeared on the tablet screen. At first, there was only darkness. Then the light reached a smooth inner wall. The surface looked carved, not broken. Lines ran along it in careful patterns. As the drone moved lower, the chamber opened wider. The space below was enormous. The walls curved inward like a bowl turned upside down. At the center, a platform stood raised above the chamber floor. It looked untouched, free of water and damage. "What is that place?" Ben whispered. Laura did not answer. The drone moved closer to the platform. The symbols appeared again, larger now and more detailed. They formed circles and shapes that repeated with perfect balance. Mark felt a strange pull in his thoughts, as if his mind was trying to recognize something it had never learned. Suddenly, the drone stopped. The cable went tight. "It is stuck," one of the team members said. Laura adjusted controls, but the drone did not move. Then the image shifted. The platform began to glow faintly. Mark's breath slowed. The glow was not bright, but it was clear. The light pulsed slowly, matching the hum beneath their feet. "It is responding," Laura said. "To what?" Ben asked. "To us," Laura replied. The drone camera flickered, then cut out completely. The cable snapped free and whipped upward, empty. The hum stopped again. Silence fell over the shore. Mark felt a deep sense of unease. Whatever lay beneath the lake was aware now. It had reacted to the intrusion. Laura stepped back. "We should not go further today." Before Mark could respond, the ground shifted. A low tremor passed through the earth, stronger than before. Small stones rolled near the shore. The exposed structure beneath the lake gave a slow, heavy movement, as if adjusting. Water at the edges rushed inward again. The opening began to close. "No," Ben said. "It is sealing itself." The water returned quickly, flowing back into the chamber. Within minutes, the structure was hidden again beneath rising water. The whirlpool returned, smaller but faster now. The lake's surface slowly rebuilt itself, covering the opening completely. When the water finally settled, the lake looked almost normal again. Only the spinning center remained, quiet and controlled. Mark let out a breath he did not realize he was holding. Laura stared at the water. "It allowed us to see it. And now it is hiding again," Ben said. "Yes," Laura replied. "Because it knows we are here." Emergency officials arrived before nightfall. The park was closed fully. Equipment was packed. Guards were posted. Orders were given to keep the discovery quiet. Mark stood at the edge of the lake as darkness fell. The whirlpool was still there. Smaller than before. Quieter. Patient. He felt certain of one thing. Whatever rested beneath the lake was not finished. It had awakened. And soon, it would decide what came next. The park no longer belonged to visitors. Tall metal barriers now blocked every road leading to the lake. Warning signs stood where trees once framed walking paths. Guards watched quietly, speaking little. The place that had been peaceful for decades now felt tense and guarded. Mark returned to the lake each morning. Even with orders to stay away, he felt responsible. He had been the first to see the water move. He could not walk away now. The whirlpool remained at the center of the lake, smaller than before but steady. It no longer felt wild. It felt controlled. Laura and her team returned with new equipment. This time, their approach was careful and slow. They did not lower drones or disturb the water. They only observed. "We are not trying to open it," Laura said to Mark. "We are trying to understand it." Mark nodded. "I believe it understands us already." The air around the lake felt different. Sound carried poorly. Voices seemed to fade quickly, as if the space absorbed them. Even footsteps felt softer near the shore. Ben joined Mark one afternoon. "I heard something strange last night," he said. "What kind of strange?" Mark asked. "Almost like a voice," Ben replied. "Not words. More like a pattern." Mark felt a slow chill. "From the lake." Ben nodded. That night, Mark stayed near the shore long after others left. The guards stood at a distance. The moon rose high, and the lake reflected its light except at the center, where the whirlpool swallowed it. Then Mark heard it. A low rhythm. It was not sound the way humans knew it. It felt like pressure inside his head, steady and repeating. The water at the center pulsed faintly with each rhythm. Mark did not move. He felt no fear. Only focus. The rhythm changed. It slowed, then paused, then resumed with a different pattern. Mark realized it was not random. It was structured. Intentional. The next morning, Laura confirmed it. Our sensors recorded a repeating signal, she said. It is not natural. What does it mean? Ben asked. We do not know yet, Laura replied. But it appears to be a message. The team worked through the day, translating patterns into visual data. Lines formed on screens. Circles connected. The shapes looked familiar. These symbols, Laura said quietly. They match the markings on the structure. Mark leaned closer. So it is speaking its own language. Yes, Laura said. And it wants to be understood. As the sun set, the lake responded again. The whirlpool widened slightly. The water glowed faintly beneath the surface. The pressure in the air increased, but no wind blew. Then the lake changed. The surface flattened completely. The whirlpool disappeared. In its place, light rose from below. The lake became clear, revealing the structure once more. The opening did not drain water this time. It only showed itself beneath the surface. The symbols around the opening glowed brighter than before. Mark felt his thoughts slow. Images formed in his mind, not as words but as feelings. Time. Waiting. Protection. The structure was not a trap or a weapon. It was a seal. Laura felt it too. Tears filled her eyes as she stared at the lake. This was built to protect something, she said. From us? Ben asked. Laura shook her head. From time. The message continued. The structure had been placed long ago, before the lake existed. Water had been guided above it to hide it. The whirlpool was not a failure. It was a signal. It activated when the seal weakened. And now? Mark asked. Laura took a slow breath. Now it is asking for help. The ground vibrated gently. Not in warning, but in trust. The seal beneath the lake had held for generations. But time had worn it thin. The structure could not repair itself fully. It needed human hands to understand its purpose and maintain it. If we ignore it, Ben said, what happens? Laura did not answer right away. The seal fails. And what is being sealed? Mark asked. Laura looked at the lake. Something that must remain contained. The light beneath the water faded slowly. The whirlpool returned, smaller than ever. The lake's surface calmed again. Mark felt the weight of responsibility settle on him. The lake was not hiding a secret. It was guarding one. And now, it had chosen to share that burden. The lake was quiet again. At sunrise, mist floated gently over the water, just as it had for decades. To anyone passing by, the place looked peaceful, unchanged, and ordinary. Only those who knew the truth understood how much rested beneath the surface. Mark stood at the shore, hands in his jacket pockets. The whirlpool was still there, but barely visible now. It turned slowly, almost politely, as if aware of being watched. The lake no longer felt restless. It felt patient. Laura joined him, carrying a small case of instruments. The signal stopped last night, she said. Mark nodded. It said what it needed to say. Over the past days, teams from different agencies had come and gone. Meetings were held behind closed doors. Reports were written and sealed. Many wanted to drain the lake again and expose the structure fully. Laura argued against it. This was not built to be opened, she said. It was built to last. Mark supported her. He had felt the message himself. The structure beneath the lake was not broken. It was aging. Like all things shaped by time, it needed care, not force. Ben walked over, holding a radio. Final decision is coming in, he said. They waited in silence. After several minutes, Ben lowered the radio. They agreed. Mark exhaled slowly. Agreed to what? To leave it sealed, Ben said. We monitor it, protect the lake, and keep this place hidden. Laura smiled softly. That is the right choice. Work began immediately. New systems were installed around the lake, hidden beneath natural features. Sensors monitored pressure, movement, and energy beneath the water. The goal was not control, but balance. Mark stayed on as lead ranger. The park reopened slowly, with new rules and quiet limits. Visitors returned, unaware that the calm water they admired was more than scenery. The lake remained peaceful, its secret safe. Weeks passed. The whirlpool grew smaller each day until it was barely noticeable. The water regained its smooth surface. Birds returned fully. The forest breathed again. One evening, Mark walked alone along the shore. The sun dipped low, painting the lake in gold. Mark felt a familiar pressure in the air, gentle and calm. Not a warning. A presence. He stopped. The lake's surface shimmered briefly. In his mind, a simple understanding formed. The seal was stable. The structure beneath the lake was no longer weakening. It had accepted the help it needed. Time would continue, but now it would do so with care. Mark nodded to the water. "We will keep watching," he said softly. The lake remained still. Years passed. Mark eventually retired from his position. Ben took his place, just as careful and observant. Laura continued her research, always respectful of the boundary between knowledge and restraint. The lake never misbehaved again. No whirlpools formed. No lights appeared beneath the surface. The structure remained hidden, silent, and secure. Visitors came and went, drawn by the same peace that had always defined the place. Children skipped stones across the water. Couples sat along the shore. Birds nested without fear. And beneath it all, the ancient seal held. Not because it was forced, but because it was understood. Long after Mark left the park, a small plaque was placed near the eastern trail. It said nothing of structures or secrets. It carried only a simple message. This land is protected by care and patience. Most people read it and moved on. A few paused. Those few felt something gentle in the air, something old and steady. They felt safe without knowing why. The lake watched over them all, and the world remained unchanged. Because some things are meant to stay hidden, and some guardians do their work best when no one knows they are there.